item. So it was more of a higher class part of the society that were having the tulips. So I think you've probably heard of the word Tulip Mania. And this took place in the 17th century, the 1600s. And just, a short time, less than 50 years after Clusius got the bulb and introduced it into the Netherlands, it became the fourth leading export in the Netherlands. And this was behind gin, herrings, and cheese. So industries that are very similar to Wisconsin with our cheese and our fishing and things like that. I think probably beer is more famous here than gin is, but at any rate, it still kind of reminded me of Wisconsin here. So because people were really getting into the beauty of them and wanted to have them so badly, the price began to skyrocket. And people were speculating on what a price would be, what tulips would sell for in the future. So one of the things that really kind of led to the infatuation with it was a tendency of tulips to become infected with a virus. And the virus then would result in odd and often very attractive colored streaking in the flowers. And these variants became very prized and were sought widely, and people offered many guilders, which was their form of money, to be able to get some of these virusy plants. It led to widespread trading, speculation, and then as many such fads to a sudden market collapse in 1637. The lovely tulips have remained to this day, however, and they are depicted in the art of the Dutch masters. And for this reason, similar ones today with this streaking tendency of various colors are called Rembrandt tulips. However, the ones of today that have that don't actually have the virus that they had back in that time period. I did read someplace that somebody for a single tulip bulb paid for it with 4 fat oxen. So this just really shows how crazy the whole thing got after that. So even after the collapse, Holland continued to produce and develop new varieties. And so I thought I'd share with you a little bit about what it takes to bring a new variety of tulip to market. So first of all, the first step is cross-pollinating. So you've got to get the male and female parts of 2 different plants together that you want to try to get a new tulip variety from it. So once they've taken a brush or and just put the pollen onto the female part, it will form a seed pod which contains about 200 seeds. So the seed is sown in the autumn in crates, and green shoots and blades, which look like grass, appear in the spring. So this process keeps on going on each year for about 5 years until the bulbs themselves get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And then at that point in time, they will begin flowering. So the first 5 years are just simply the plant itself without any flower at all. So even though they've made this cross initially, they really don't see the result of it until 5 years later. And then at that point in time, they'll take a look at all of the ones that they're trying to come up with new varieties, and they actually end up discarding almost 99.9% of them. So they have different standards of evaluation for determining whether or not they're going to keep it. But I've often wondered that wouldn't it be great to be there on the day that they decide to discard their tulips and just kind of hoard them in for your own use. So finally, after that has been done, they keep on growing the bulbs and growing the bulbs until they get bigger and bigger so that they're going to be such that they can actually market them. And this can take 20 to 25 years before this actually takes place. So I've got a video here that I'm going to share. And I just want to give you a little bit of background about the video to begin with. This is how bulbs are produced. And this contains kind of a sequence of events in 1 year of cultivation of the bulbs. And this is taken on a farm in Southwest Holland called Maliapard. The company is one of the largest producers in Holland. They have about 321 acres of tulips. And all of these tulips are being grown for the bulbs, not for the flowers. You know, we benefit, we plant them in our gardens so that we can have the flowers the following spring. But what they're growing them for is for the bulb itself so that it can be sold to us as customers. At one point in the video, you're going to see that the bulbs are topped off so that the plant is putting all of its energy into the development of the bulbs. And so it just seems criminal to take and cut all those flowers off, but that's what they have to do in order to get the bulbs as big as they can, as quickly as they can. And the bulbs are harvested in the summer, and then they're put into storage and kept at cool temperatures. And in the fall, the bulbs are planted back in the field, and the large ones are sold to greenhouse growers where they grow to beautiful tulips for the consumer market, or they're shipped all over the world. So let's just go and see if we can get this started. This production is going to take approximately 15 minutes. Okay, Andrea, I'm having difficulty. It didn't start the video. So are you able to do it from your computer?
Yeah, let me see if I can get it to come up on my end. Yeah.
When I practiced it this morning, it worked perfectly, but
of course, right? Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna quick let da 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 da. We'll play after ads. Okay. I'm going to, oh, this does not look like. Okay, here we go. Because of course it wants to play all the ads.
now, do I need to hit stop share on my screen?
I think so. Let me. All right. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Barb, you should be able to share your screen again.
Okay. Okay, well, I really apologize that the sound was not coming through on that, but I think you could see the process, and with the writing that, the captions that came up in there, can kind of get a feel for what was happening with it. I think when I first saw this, that it kind of reminded me of the cranberry production in this part of Wisconsin. There weren't farm machines that were specifically made for cranberry processing until the processors said, we need something that's going to do this. And all of the machines that they're using here for the bulb production are very specialized and not your typical farm vehicles at all. So, okay, so what does this industry mean to the Netherlands? Well, 77% of all bulbs in the world come from the Netherlands. They employ over 20,000 people, have over 52,000 acres, and most of the farm sizes are not like the one that we just saw in the video. They're usually more like a 20-acre type of a operation, so more of a family farm type of a thing. The country produces 9 billion bulbs annually, and 1/3 of those are tulips. So 3 million bulbs of tulips. And just to kind of help visualize how many that would be, if you were to plant each one of those tulip bulbs 4 inches apart, they would circle around the globe at the equator 7 different times. So it's almost mind-boggling. The top countries that they do send to are the US, of course, Japan, China, Russia, and Scandinavia. So that's pretty much the history and how they produce them. What I want to do now is show you some slides that I took when I was there at Keukenhof. And this is the main entrance to the park. This is just something that's really special. So if you ever in your lifetime get a chance to go to Keukenhof, I think you would really enjoy it. The year that I went was in 2019, and it was the first week of April. And just to give you a little idea of what Keukenhof is, it was established by the Dutch bulb industry themselves to kind of showcase their main product, the bulbs, and to get people to buy more bulbs. So they established this park. It's a little over 70 acres in size, and it's only open to the public 8 weeks out of the year. And it's when all of the bulbs are in their glory. So every year, every fall, they plant it. And then in the springtime, usually mid-March to mid-May is when the park is open. Every year they have a different theme. So each year it looks different. The beds themselves are shaped and planned and done differently every year. And every day at the park within that 8-week period is different as well, because there'll be different bulbs blooming at different times. So in the fall, they will plant 7 million bulbs, and this is all done by hand. It's not done by machinery, and it's all done by volunteers, which is just amazing to me. And the whole process takes about 3 months to complete. And then every spring they sow new grass seed in it too. So it's like they create this park for just a very short period of time. So this is just kind of a map of the grounds here. And you can see this area here was that first slide I showed where it says Keukenhof on it. That's the main entrance. And then from there you can go throughout the park. They have a lot of different areas that I'll kind of give you a flavor for as we go through the slides here. Over here on the right-hand side, you see all these colored things. That's just representing some production fields that are actually just surrounding the park itself. So you can see the fields there. So these are very much like the ones that you just saw in the video. So in 2019, it was the 70th anniversary of Pukenhof. And the theme that year was flower power. So think back to 1969 and the Volkswagen bus and the little tiny Volkswagen all decorated up in flower power and things like that. So they, throughout the park, they really just capitalized on this, this whole theme. So one of the techniques that is used not only here in containers, but also in the bulb fields themselves is a thing called lasagna planting. And what it is different layers, just like you think of when you make lasagna, you've got different layers of the food. So what they do is they'll create usually 3 layers, and on the bottom layer is the latest blooming varieties. In the middle are the ones that bloom in April, and at the top is the smaller bulbs, the early bulbs like crocus and that type of a thing. So they do that because that way then they can get blooms constantly throughout the beds for the entire 8 weeks that the park is open. So here are some pictures here from different parts of the park. I think the biggest thing is the senses that you get. You walk in there, the fragrance will just capture your attention right away. And of course the color, I mean, look at those saturated colors. And then you've got the quaintness of a windmill right there. And you can actually go up inside the windmill and get a view from the top there of the park and kind of decide your route that you're going to be walking through it. One section of the park is dedicated just to give you some ideas of how to do bulbs in a container. And so they've got all sorts of different combinations. You can walk through there and just really get a feel for that and, you know, write down your favorites. This is an area here. I'm standing here, and in the back part here are those production fields that are located surrounded in the park and everything. And there's also this little canal area that separates the park from the production fields, and you can, you know, pay to go on a boat ride to go around there, and they'll take you over into the production fields as well. As you go through the park, whether it's outdoors or indoors, as this slide shows, all of the varieties are labeled. And the indoor part are all of the newest varieties that are just being introduced that particular year. And here's a few more scenes from it. It's just, it's like a wonderland. We spent probably, 5 or 6 hours going through the park, and just, you know, you turn a corner and the next site was just that much more thrilling than the one before. But they try to, like in this bed here, they try to set it up so that it's depicting something, and it's very graphic. They do have some areas too where you can get up a little bit higher and look down, and you can really kind of see the composition that they're showing in that particular bed. This one on the left here is a little bit more ornate, and when you looked up from high, it was actually like a design of the tulip plant itself. Over here, you can see this gentleman here with this long stick. At the end of it is actually a clippers, and he will be going through this the beds every single day, and he'll be clipping off any of the flowers that have gotten past their peak. And so every day is different, you know, because the flower that was good yesterday might not be good today, and so it gets clipped off, and so that changes, you know, what that particular bed looks like at that time. these gals were all dressed up in a costume that's supposed to represent a tulip. And not only that, they're standing on stilts and walking around, just kind of enjoying the day and promoting tulips. So it was kind of a whimsy thing. I just can't imagine standing on stilts for hours at a time, but there they were. Here are some more beds. This one up in the upper left-hand corner here, you can see that there's different like pie slices on it. And this is the historical garden. And what they did is they took different periods of time since the tulip was first introduced into Holland. And they would take that particular period of time and show the varieties that were grown at that time. So you could kind of walk around the outside edge of it and see how things changed over time, what varieties became available at different periods of time. This is, I didn't see this on our trip while I was there, but I have seen this picture many times, and they did have a photograph of it, an enlarged photograph of it on one of the display buildings. And so I took a picture of it because it's the River of Tulips. And it's supposed to represent, you know, a river going through an area. All of the blue flowers there are grape hyacinths. And they are something, it's, you know, it's just got to be thousands and thousands of them that are planted there, because that's a tiny bulb compared to the size of a tulip. But to get that intense blue coloring all the way through it, you know, this is always just something that's always struck my interest. And a little bit of whimsy as you go through the park. When I saw the cow all decorated with tulips on it, I thought, oh, it's just like in Wisconsin. We've got cows all over. And I'm from Madison originally, and there was one year on the Capitol Square where they had the cows on the square. And so there was decorated cows throughout the community at that time. This was a little bit more whimsy. What they did is they had these different tulip plants kind of set up on a display area, and then behind it there's a ladder. So you climb up on the ladder and it looks like you're wearing a wedding dress made out of tulips. And lots of shopping. One part of the park there, you could go in and they had different books set up. There was like a book for European visitors, another book for American visitors, because certain varieties that are available in Europe cannot be shipped to the US, or, you know, I'm not exactly sure why, but going through the books there, then you could order tulips, and, you know, this was in April of the year, and then they are shipped to you the following fall. And I did order quite a few. I've got a lot of daffodils in my yard that I ordered at this time. I'm in an area that is heavily covered by the deer population. And so tulips are not something that are easy for me to grow, because the deer would eat them before I even get to enjoy them. So I concentrated on daffodils and also species tulips. And I don't know if you're familiar with what a species tulip is, but here are pictures of a couple of examples. And they are kind of like the original tulips. I guess you could think of it that way. They're the original tulips before they were hybridized. But they are smaller in size, a little bit shorter. They look like they're very delicate, but they're actually very strong. They can live through temperature changes, through snowstorms, and just about everything. And the best part in my mind is that the deer do avoid them. And so these are the types of tulips that I grow in my yard and enjoy tremendously when they come up. Okay, now I've got another video here, and I'm going to try and see if I can get this started here myself.
Yeah, you go ahead and try, Barb. I do have it pulled up as for backup.
Okay. Nope, it's not working. Okay, before, I just want to show one last slide then, and then we can go back and maybe have you do it, Andrea.
That sounds good. And hopefully I can get the audio figured out this time.
Okay, I think that when you do it, there's a thing called enable sound or optimize the video on it.
Okay, awesome.
But okay, this last slide that I've got here is, I'm a quilter, and so when I saw this at a quilt show, I took a picture of it, but this was a quilter's interpretation of what Kuchenhof looked like after she had been to it. So it was just something that I enjoyed tremendously. So I'll turn it over to you, Andrea. I will stop the share here on my end.
All right, now pull up. And I'll share my end here. All right. Everybody see it?
Is likely again this year, Coconut had to make a choice: plant everything as usual or play it safe and plant a more modest garden. They decided to take the risk, but this year's opening has already been delayed by several weeks.
We make costs during the entire year, 12 months of a year, and we only make money in 8 weeks.
With the clock already ticking, will these efforts be for nothing? Coconut is located in Lees, Netherlands, and roughly translates to kitchen garden. Owen has been working at Coconut for 33 years, and he's pretty much a tulip expert.
I didn't see much flowers when I came here first. I knew what a daffodil was, but not a tulip.
Every season begins by tearing last year's bulbs out of the ground. They'll be composted and used as fertilizer.
For your own garden, you can leave them in the ground. But if you leave them in the ground for 3 or 4 years, the flower is going to be smaller and smaller and smaller. You won't get the same quality as you put in new bulbs. So that's the whole idea.
Harvesting 7 million bulbs is no easy task, and it's definitely not quick. It takes the gardeners almost 2 months.
This is where the creative stuff happens.
Meanwhile, designers like Franz get to work.
I do this by hand, and then I put it in the computer.
It takes them about 4 months to get dozens of designs from draft to final. Each of the 800 different varieties of tulip in this year's show was hand-selected based on its quality and color. The designs are finalized by early summer, and then the orders are sent out to bulb growers. Meanwhile, gardeners use Franz's map to measure and mark the boundaries to prepare the garden. In late summer, the millions of bulbs Franz ordered arrive. They're then sorted by color, shape, and variety, and checked for size and firmness. Each bag will be assigned a number that corresponds to a plot and type of bulb to ensure the gardeners make no mistakes.
Preparation is everything. Preparation is good. The result will be good also.
When October hits, it's time to plant.
Everybody got his own spade.
This is the most important tool in the gardener's toolbox.
I got it nearly 25 years, just like my second marriage.
The tulip is a beautiful but short-lived flower, lasting only about a week and a half. So to keep the gardens flowering all 8 weeks of the season, the gardeners use a technique called the Lasagna method, where they stagger early and late blooming bulbs. The late bloomers are planted first and deeper, and they arrive in May. The middle row blooms around April, and the crocuses are on top since they blossom in March.
If you pay money, you want to see your flowers. So that's why we plant in different layers. late flowers, early flowers, and crocuses.
All of the planting here is done entirely by hand.
A machine cannot plant shapes like this. A machine cannot plant in layers, and a machine cannot plant mixtures. Every day, cold, rain, doesn't matter.
That is a lot of work. There's no problem.
The Dutch climate is perfect for tulips. Not too hot, and with winters just cold enough to trigger an important biochemical process needed for the tulips to bloom properly. When the soil temperature is below 55 degrees, it breaks down starches and carbohydrates in the bulb to form glucose. Glucose is less likely to freeze than water and helps the bulb withstand colder temperatures. Then when the temperature rises, the glucose becomes an energy source that helps the flower bloom. For ideal growth, it should stay cold for around 12 to 14 weeks. Tulips originated in the central plains of Asia and were a favorite flower of the Ottoman Empire before being imported to the Netherlands around 400 years ago.
It's the time of Rembrandt, Vermeer, famous Dutch painters, and the prices of tulip bulbs, they go sky high. One of the canal houses was sold for 3 tulip bulbs, which is nowadays, of course, impossible to understand.
The Dutch were basically trading in tulip futures, speculating the price would go higher and higher.
And then at one time, people started to realize that it was gone up a little bit too high, like the bubbles that we have now in the economy, and the prices went down, and that's what we call the Tulip Mania times. And then 100 years ago, the first real professional tulip growers created their farms here in this surrounding.
Now almost every tulip flower you see around the world has its origins here in the Netherlands, and that's pretty big business.
The floral industry in the Netherlands is about 6 billion euros, and the flower bulb industry is about 700, 800 million euros a year.
Since tulips are generally grown from a bulb, not a seed, they take patience to propagate. And creating enough bulbs to introduce a new variety can take 20 years. You can see some of them on display here at Kokenhoff's Greenhouse Pavilion.
The grower brought it to Kokenhof to show it to the audience.
New tulips aren't just named, they're baptized.
As soon as someone wants to baptize it, there will be a ceremony with a lot of champagne and the big certificate, and then the tulip will be registered to its new name.
There are about 6,500 tulip varieties, and each is registered at the Royal General Bulb Growers Association.
It's from the Darwin hybrid group, and it's called Momotaro. Yes, no clue what it means, but an old traditional small tulip, and it's called Quebec. This one's called Négligé. It's very pointy. The color changes. It starts yellow, and at the end it's red.
Leading up to the opening, things get pretty stressful here, as everyone works tirelessly to make sure things look perfect.
Sometimes you see a little spot where something is mixed up, a yellow one in a field of red tulips. It's a disgrace for the garden. They'll pick it away anyway.
This is a crocus from last year. So we just keep it tidy.
They had hoped to open on March 20th, but with the Netherlands still in lockdown, opening day came and went, with the park staying empty.
It's been hard for the people. For instance, gardeners that have been planting bulbs for 3 months, been on their knees, and there's no problem because that's their job. They love it. They also love to show what they've made to the public.
For now, the rest of the world will have to wait and view Coconut by a virtual tour.
It's a very hard time. We have to adjust, of course, as every company does, but we will face it. Keukenhof is an institute with a showcase of the floral industry in the Netherlands. It's a hard period of time, but we will survive at least. And we hope for a good 2022, because Keukenhof is still beautiful.
The Democrat to beat Ron Johnson. It's why Alex Lasry is endorsed by Wisconsin's.
Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. Oh. So that's the end of my presentation, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
There were a couple questions. One was, how would you describe the soil that the tulip bulbs in the video are being grown in? And she said it looks like clay. Do you know if it was clayish or the very first video that we watched?
I don't know for sure. You know, I guess I didn't even check into that much. I know that tulips can grow in almost any type of soil. I just don't know.
All right. And then another question was, in container gardening with bulbs, is container gardening with bulbs possible in northern Wisconsin?
Yes, it is. And in fact, I do grow tulips in containers indoors. So in the fall, I'll plant them in a container, and I've got a spare refrigerator down in the basement, and I put them in there because they need a cold period. And so I'll leave them in there. Each type of bulb has its own amount of time that you need to keep it refrigerated. And then I'll pull it out. So usually I'll plant them up in late October, early November, and then I'll pull them out of the refrigerator usually in February and bring them out onto my my kitchen island and set them up there. And the warmth of, our room temperature will start to get them to grow, and they will produce their flowers indoors. So I enjoy them indoors so that I can enjoy them and not have to worry about the deer getting after them. But yes, that would be the way to do it. If you don't want to dedicate a refrigerator to do that, you could, even in northern Wisconsin, you could plant up a container, but you would need to bury it in the garden over the winter, and then let it just come up and, either dig the container out in the spring when, the snow is going away and normally the bulbs would start growing in the ground. But that's kind of the two different ways that you could approach it.
All right. So if there's any other questions you have, we'll give you a minute or two to let us know. Just you can put it in the question. And oh, here's another one. What companies do you recommend we purchase bulbs from?
My favorite company that I order from is John Sheepers, and they're located in Connecticut. But you can just look for them online. They have a catalog online, or you could sign up to get their catalog. They have a wonderful, wonderful selection of all sorts of bulbs, and also amaryllis and paper whites and things like that. Their prices are very reasonable. When you go to a company like this, you really get a huge variety of bulbs that you can choose from. And they've got color pictures in the catalog as well as online, so you'll have an idea. They'll tell you what type of tulip there are. There's, different divisions, and they'll tell you when you can expect that they'll bloom in the garden. So that'll help you if you want to plan for early varieties versus medium and late varieties, and really, extend the bloom in your own garden as much as possible. When you go to Walmart or other big box stores, the amount of variety is just not there as much, and there's not a lot of information that you can gather as you shop. So I really prefer the bulb companies. Somebody just said try color blends. I've heard that one too. And I think the one thing that they do is they'll put together collections where they have designed out bulbs that go together well on it. So that's a plus for how they market theirs.
All right, there is another question. In the video, they cut off the flowers when they died back. Should we do that also?
Yes, because if you don't cut off the flower, it's going to the plant is going to form seeds in the part at the top where the flower forms. You want to cut it off so that the most of the energy of the plant in the remainder of the year is into putting energy back into the bulb to growing it bigger so that it can come back the following year. So if tulips tend to be kind of fleeting in terms of not lasting for years and years and years like a perennial will. Daffodils will last forever, but tulips usually you can get 2 to 3 years from it, and then after that they just are kind of depleted and you need to replant them.
There's another one. Do you have to leave the leaves to give energy to the bulbs?
Yes, you do. If you cut off the leaves, then there won't be any energy going back into the bulb, and that energy is produced as the leaves themselves kind of start to dry up and wither away. So one of the approaches that I've made in my own garden is to plant other perennials around the bulbs themselves, so that as the bulb foliage is going through its kind of senescence period or ugly period, there's something else that is going to be growing up in front of it, so it'll kind of hide it a little bit. Daylilies are really great for doing that. And you can actually put on your calendar, when a bulb finishes blooming, let's just say it finishes blooming in early May, you could mark on your calendar 6 weeks from then. And even though it's not completely brown and desiccated, you can go and cut it back at that point in time. And most of the energy has already been transferred down to the bulb at that point.
Okay, there's another question. Any suggestions for keeping tulip bulbs from being eaten by rabbits, indoor deer?
Well, the deer are a problem. I would suggest if you want to have tulips that you choose species tulips. And I mentioned about the John Sheepers catalog or any of the bulb growers that have catalogs, they'll have a special area where they have species tulips, a special section with them. So you go with those. As far as your rabbits, they usually don't eat the flowers. They might chew on the leaves a little bit. Squirrels will go after and eat bulbs. So what you can do is when you originally plant them in the fall, take like some chicken wire and put that on top of the bulbs itself before you put the dirt back in the hole. And that would keep rodents and voles and those types of things from going after and digging down, because once they hit that wire, they'll stop. And with the bulbs down below it, it's going to protect them. Oh, another strategy too for critters is after you've planted them, sprinkle milorganite over the holes. And that, most critters don't like the smell of that and they'll stay away.
Here's another question. If I notice that my bulbs have multiplied, should I break them apart?
Yes, then you can have more. So yeah, so you would want to wait until after they've died back. You might want to just mark them somehow so you know where the hole is, and go in and dig them up and pull them apart and either spread them out further in that general area or plant them in a different spot or give them to a friend.
All right. Are there any other questions out there? Ask them now.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I've enjoyed this. You've had good questions, and I hope you are inspired to order a bunch of bulbs for your own garden.
And thank you, Barb, for presenting for us tonight and sharing your beautiful pictures too, and your knowledge about tulips and daffodils and planting bulbs.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We had a record of 57 viewers tonight, so thank you so much. And please join us next month. Every month we have the same Monday of the month, we have a Master Gardener program. Oh, and we do, and somebody else commented and asked, thank you for a very nice presentation. So yes, thank you so much, Barb. I love seeing your photos, and please join us back here in February for our next Garden Guru program. And thanks a lot to the Master Gardeners, volunteers of Wood County, who always makes these programs possible. This will be signing off now. This is Andrea from the Everett Royal Marshfield Public Library in Marshfield, Wisconsin. And thanks, Barb, from the Master Gardeners of Wood County. Have a good night, everyone.